Lesson 3-1, solving equations with addition and subtraction. You learn to solve equations by using addition and subtraction. Let's take a look at a real-world example in the sport of football. Okay, according to the graph below, the Chicago Bears and the Pittsburgh Steelers have each appeared on television on Monday night a total of 44 times through the 1998 and 1999 season. Okay, and this is a bar graph to show that. And in our bar graph, you have all the other teams. Okay, Miami Dolphins, Dallas, San Francisco, the Raiders, the Redskins, the Bears, and the Steelers. Okay, and it says that they have appeared a total of 44 times through the 1998-99 season. Okay, so if during the next 5 seasons, each team appears an average of 2 times per season, the two teams would still have an equal number of appearances on television on Monday nights. That makes sense. Okay? And 44 equals 44 for both teams. So therefore, if we have 44 plus 5 times 2 and 44 plus 5 times 2, what does 5 times 2 represent? 2 appearances per season, okay, for 5 seasons, okay, and that's what 5 times 2 represents. They both have 44 games, okay, 44 appearances, and 5 times 2 is represented by 2 appearances per season for 5 seasons. Okay? So this example basically tells us that you multiply both sides by 10, it does not change, okay, the equation. So the example illustrates addition property of equality. We learned this last year, which simply states this. For any numbers a, b, and c, if a is equal to b, then a plus b plus c is equal to b plus c. So whatever you add to one side of the equation, you add to the other side, and it will not change the equation. Okay. Also notice that c can be positive, negative, or 0. So in the equation on the left below, c equals 5. Okay. Below, c equals 5. In the equation on the right, c equals negative 5. So this is what it's referring to right here, right there. So 18 plus 5, okay, you add 5 to 18, then you subtract 5 to 18. Okay, the equation does not change. If the same number is added to each side of the equation, then the result is called an equivalent equation. Equivalent equations are equations that have the same solution. Okay, another definition that should be in your notebook. Okay, so let's say you have y plus 7 equals 13. Okay, the solution to this equation is 6. We know that. Okay, so if we add 3 to both sides of the equation using the addition property of equality, okay, we end up with y plus 10 equals 16. The solution to this equation is still 6. So if you notice, y plus 7 equals 13 is an equivalent equation, okay, to y plus 10 equals 16 because they have the same solution, which is 6. Okay? More recall or review. Recall that the equation mat is a model of an equation. The sides of the mat represent sides of an equation. When you add counters to each side, the result is an equivalent equation as shown below. So we start off with this mat. Y plus 7 equals 3. You have y represented by the cup. 7 positive counters equals 3 positive counters. Okay? So here, if we have y plus 7 plus 5, which means we add 5 to the left side, okay? We also add 5 to the right side, okay? And those are these represent, okay, equivalent equations. To solve an equation means to isolate the variable having the coefficient of one side of the equation. Okay, so again, let's revisit coefficient. The meaning of coefficient is the number before the variable again. So to be able to solve an equation, it means to isolate the variable having a coefficient of 1 on one side of the equation. You can do this by using the addition property of equality. So we want to solve 23 plus t equals negative 16. Again, first thing you need to do is copy 23 plus t equals negative 16. And then we want to solve for t, meaning we need to isolate t with the coefficient of t being 1 only. So we subtract 23 to both sides to undo 23. And then now we have negative 16 plus negative 23, because 23 plus negative 23 will result in 0. So this one will result in 0. Okay. Oops. Okay. So that goes away. So you end up with t. T is equal to negative 39, because you're adding 0 to t here. Okay. T equals negative 39. Again, to check this equation, you simply substitute the value of negative 39 to the value of t in the original equation. Okay. You now have 23 plus negative 39. Is it equal to negative 16? By golly, it is. Negative 16 is equal to negative 16. The solution to this equation is negative 39. Okay. And let's go back to the application at the beginning of the lesson and see how we apply this. Refer to the application at the beginning. San Francisco appeared fewer times than Dallas. How many more times did Dallas appear? Again, a word problem, calls for a 4-step plan. Read the problem to find out what is asked, then define a variable. And in defining a variable, you know what we need to do. But before we do that, the problem asks how many more times Dallas appeared on television on Monday night than San Francisco. From the graph, we can see that Dallas appeared 55 times. Okay. So we let n, that's our let statement, be equal to the difference in the number of times each team appeared. 55 minus n, okay, the number of times 49ers appeared. Okay, so how did we get 55 minus n? Because we want to find, okay, how many more times did Dallas appear, okay, than the Niners. So we 55n, okay, will be equal to the number of times that Niners appeared. Okay, let's write our equation in trying to plan this. Okay, you know that 55 minus n represents the number of times San Francisco appeared. Okay, from that chart we can see that San Francisco appeared 51 times, thus 55 minus n is equal to 51. And then we simply solve this. Okay, solve this equation by copying the problem 55 minus n equals 51. Okay, and then we subtract 55 to both sides of the equation to undo 55 and to isolate n. Okay, and if you notice, negative n equals negative 4. Okay, and in negative n equals negative 4, it means that the opposite of n is negative 4, or simply n is equal to 4. Okay, so when you say negative n equals negative 4, it's simply saying that the opposite of n is equal to negative 4, okay, or n equals positive 4. Or you can do this, we'll learn this later on. If we multiply both sides with 1, not that one, oopsie, undo that thing. Okay, so if I multiply both sides by negative 1, if you notice, the result will still be equal to n equals negative 4. I think that's the best way of understanding this. Okay. Okay. And in checking our answer, we simply see if our answer makes sense. If Dallas appeared 55 times and San Francisco appeared 51 times, then the difference is 55 minus 51, or 4 times. Makes sense. Let's take a look at example 3, but before we do that, let's look at another property of equality, and that is the subtraction property of equality. Okay, we may also use this to solve equations, and it simply states that for any numbers a, b, and c, if a equals b, then a minus b, c is equal to b minus c. Simply saying whatever you subtract to one side of the inequality, okay, you need to subtract to the other side as well to make both equations remain the same, to have equivalent equations and for the equations to remain true. Okay, let's take a look at this example. Solve 190 minus x equals 215. Okay, and in trying to solve this equation, we first copy down. Now 190 minus x equals 15. Okay, and then we subtract 190 to both sides. We want to undo 190, so we subtract 190 to both sides. We end up with negative x equals 25. Okay, and again, the opposite of x is 25. That means x is equal to negative 25. Okay, so the opposite of x is 25. Therefore, x is equal to negative 25. Or do what I did in the last example. Just simply multiply both sides by negative 1. Whatever you do to one side of the equation, you need to do to the other side. This is a property that we will study further in the next lesson. Okay, so the solution for this one would be negative 25, and in checking our answer, we simply substitute the value of negative 25 to our x. So this becomes 190 minus negative 25. Is it equal to 215? Most definitely it is. So the solution is, okay, negative 25. The next example, most equations can be solved in two ways. Remember that subtracting a number is the same as adding its inverse. Okay, we learned this when we were subtracting integers. When you're subtracting a number, okay, it's the same thing as adding its inverse, or when you're subtracting, add its opposite. Okay, let's take a look at a plus 3 equals negative 9 in two ways. Let's take a look at method 1. A plus 3 equals negative 9. We subtract 3 to both sides according to the subtraction property of equality, and we end up with a equals negative 12. Again, checking our answer, very simple. Plug in negative 12 to a and see if it makes sense. Yes, it does. Okay, in method 2, we use the addition property of equality in method 2. And if we look at the, well, in method 1, we use the subtraction property of equality. I forgot to put that there. In method 2, we use the addition property of equality. And now we copy the same problem. A plus 3 equals negative 9. And then, using the addition property of equality, okay, we add its additive inverse. So the additive inverse of 3 is negative 3. We add that to both sides. If you notice, it's still the same. A equals negative 12. Okay? Next example, example number 5. Sometimes equations can be solved more easily if they are first rewritten in different form. We want to solve y equals y minus negative 3/7 equals negative 4/7. Okay? The equation, okay, this equation is equivalent to y plus 3/7 equals negative 4/7. Y, okay? So if you notice, y minus negative 3/7 is simply saying, remember what we discussed in the last example. When you're subtracting, you're adding its opposite. When you're subtracting, you're adding its additive inverse. Okay, so you want to add the additive inverse of negative 3/7, which is 3/7. Okay, that's what we got that from the definition of subtraction. Remember, we talked about this one. When you're subtracting 2 minus 1 equals 1, what you're actually doing is you're adding the additive inverse of 1, which is negative 1. And that's the same case here. Okay, so you have y plus 3/7 equals negative 4/7 from this equation. Okay, and from there we proceed in solving our equation. Y plus 3/7 equals negative 4/7. We isolate y by subtracting 3/7 to both sides of the equation, and we have y equals negative 7/7 or negative 1. Okay, checking our answer, you simply plug in the value back to our original equation. Okay, the value of negative 1. Okay, and we have right here, what does it want to show? There you go. Negative 7/7 minus negative 3/7. Is it equal to negative 4/7? Yes, it is. Okay, and we check our answer. The solution to this, not mail, I'm not looking at my mail, is negative 1. Okay, finally, one more example, and this is example number 6. Solve b plus negative 7.2 equals negative 12.5. Okay, so the equation is equivalent to b minus 7.2 equals negative 12.5, again using the definition of subtraction. That's why definitions of subtraction is we just stated in example 5, but we just did the opposite procedure. Okay, so let's solve this. B minus 7.2 equals negative 12.5. We want to undo negative 7.2, and therefore we need to add 7.2 to both sides of the equation. We end up with b equals negative 5.3. There are two ways of checking this. Method 1 is the best way. B plus 7.2 equals negative 4.5. Simply substitute the value negative 5.3 to b and find out if the equation is true. And yes, it is true. The second one is a calculator. Not recommended, but if you're in a hurry, that will do as well. And you end up with the same answer. The solution is negative 5.3. Lessons done. On Google Forms or My Big Campus, type a summary of what you've learned by responding to the objective of the lesson, and type a question you might want to ask in class. Thank you.